Not so much.
Good evening. Call to order the Mayor and City Council combined workshop meeting for the month of October 2019. I ask that Councilman Vigliotti lead us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman. Excuse me. We'll begin with review and approval of the minutes from the September 4th and September 19th meetings. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the September 4th and September 9th regular meetings. Is there any discussion, corrections, or amendments to those minutes?
On the second page of the September 4th minutes, under number 3, it talks about abandoning the project when we were talking about potentially going ahead with the Dunbar building. And I guess I'd kind of like to change the wording of abandon the project, because it's not that we've lost interest in the potential rec center, but just in that particular building.
So maybe abandon the property instead of.
Well, that has a different connotation.
Yeah, like maybe,
Maybe it should be more of to not move forward with the process, something along those lines.
thank you, that's all I've got from the minutes.
Would you put that in the form of a motion to amend the minutes?
I make a motion to amend the minutes, striking those 3 words and including something about how we're not abandoning the project.
Something along the lines
Something
of
along those lines.
not moving forward with the property or the process. We'll make it sound good. Jim, yes?
How about best interest of the city is not pursued this building?
I love it.
That's better.
All right.
Thank you, Jim.
Councilman Vigliotti, may that be your motion then?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do we have a second to the amendment to the minutes?
Second.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we amend the minutes as previously stated. I'm not going to try to restate that. Is there any discussion on the amendment to the minutes? All right. Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of amending the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Very good. We'll go back to the original motion. Is there any further discussion on the minutes as amended at this point? All right. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Very good. They are approved as amended. Next, we have reception of delegation. This is our 2019 audit. Each year, we look forward to this so greatly.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Wyperk, would you like to make the introductions for us?
Well, we have some familiar faces for most of us. Michelle and Maggie from Lean and Stang are here, as they usually are with our annual audit. We've been working closely with Barry for a number of months now. And I'm just going to turn things over to him, if that's all right.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us again this evening. We're here to present the draft report and provide a high-level summary of the audit results. My name is Michelle Mills, and I'm the audit principal, and I know most of you, but 2 new faces on the end. And along with me is Addie Blickenstaff, who served as the in-charge accountant during this past audit. So what we've done, for those of you who've been, have heard the presentation before, bear with us. Whenever there's newcomers to the group, we kind of like to go a little bit slower. The audit draft you have a copy of, and it's 50+ pages. What we've done is provided a summary of what we think is important for you to know and what would be important if someone were to ask you, how did the audit go? So we've attempted to summarize what we think is best, and we're certainly here to answer any questions you may have as you've looked at the draft report. So we're going to start with the required communications. At the conclusion of every audit, auditing standards require that we communicate certain things to those charged with governance. And so we have highlighted a few of the key points. The first item discloses that there were no new accounting policies adopted and existing policies did not change in fiscal year 2019, which would be important for you to know as those charged with governance as to whether or not there were any substantial changes. There were no transactions that were entered into by the city that lacked authoritative guidance or consensus. We encountered no difficulties in dealing with management in performing and completing the audit. There were no disagreements with management. There was one material misstatement that was detected as a result of our audit procedures. And when we were working with Barry and Jim through the audit process, as Jim mentioned over the last several weeks, there was an unrecorded benefit assessment that was provided in lieu of payments, and this was regarding Meads Crossing. So this equated to the value of the benefit assessments they were provided for water. Yes, okay. And the value of that was $179,656. So the next several slides are going to go over the scope of services that we did. We performed a financial statement audit. And it's important to remember that the financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our responsibility as your auditors is to express an opinion and to make sure that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. The audit was performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. And the city will receive an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, unmodified being a clean audit report. As I mentioned, the audit was performed in accordance with government auditing standards, and as a requirement, we are to look at the internal controls over financial reporting as well as compliance. And we are required to communicate in writing to you if there is anything that we find that is deemed to be a material weakness. And so on this particular slide, we have provided the definition of what a material weakness is. And it's a deficiency or combination of deficiencies in internal control such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement will not be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis. We did not identify any material weaknesses, nor did we identify any issues of noncompliance. For those that are new, this is probably the first time you've heard that two sets of financial statements are presented. Government accounting standards require that a municipality have two sets of financial statements. The two sets are titled government-wide and fund level, and government-wide is intended to present the results of your operations similar to a business, and so it's on a full accrual basis of accounting. It records capital assets, depreciation expense, and records your long-term debt obligations, unlike your fund level financial statements where those things are not required. So there are two very uniquely different sets of financial statements within the one audit report. So we're going to go through some financial highlights, and before I turn it over to Addie, I'm just going to remind you at the very bottom of each slide is a page reference. So if you'd like to go back at a later point in time and see where we're referring to, it takes you right to that page number within the draft.
All right, we're going to start with the government-wide total assets. So for the city year-end fiscal year 2019, they were just over $39 million, which was very comparable to the prior year. You can see a 0.1% increase. When we break down that 39.2% total into your two different activities, that being the governmental activities and the business type activities, you can see business type activities carries the weight of the total, approximately $27.9 million or 71%. And governmental activities have just about $11.2 million or 29%. This slide we're highlighting of those assets which are the most significant for each. Governmental activities had cash and cash equivalents at year end of $5.4 million, which is 48% of the total. Capital assets for your governmental activities are just about $5.7 million or 51%. As we compare that to the business type activities, you can see cash and cash equivalents were just about $6.6 million, 24%, and capital assets comprising 74% of the total at $20.5 million. On the opposite end of our assets are our liabilities. Total liabilities at year end were 16.7 million, which was a 4.5% decrease from the prior fiscal year. Business type activities had long-term debt of 12.7 million or 76%, and governmental activities had 3.9 million or 24%. Of those total liabilities, we've highlighted the two most significant categories. For governmental activities, they had debt of 32% or just about 1.2 million. The net pension liability for governmental activities is 2.3 million of the total 3.9. For business type activities, long-term debt equaled 97% of the total at 12.4 million, with a small net pension liability of 187,000. The swing in the net pension liability is the LEOPS, your police force, is very large, which is why the governmental activities holds the majority of that balance.
All right, this next slide everybody loves. Only in government financial statements do you see the terminology of deferred inflows and deferred outflows. Because you're seeing that in the draft report, we thought it'd be very important just to highlight the definition for it. So you'll see a deferred outflow of resources is defined as a consumption of net assets by the government that is applicable to a future period. Conversely, the deferred inflows is an acquisition of net assets by the government that is applicable to a future reporting period. And if you look at the slide a little closely, you can see most of it's attributable to the pension. As a participating employer in the Maryland State Retirement System, there's all kinds of assumptions that are made, and when they were doing the calculation, and all of it falls into these two very specific buckets of deferred inflows and outflows. This next slide just gives you a quick accounting equation. It says your assets plus your deferred outflows minus your liabilities and your deferred inflows is what we call net pension. And for governmental activities, your net pension was just over 7.6 million, and for your business type activities, your net position was 15.5 million. Here's another illustration of those same numbers, and of the total net position, you can see business type activities comprises 67% of the total, with governmental activities at 7.6, the remaining 33%. One of the requirements is to break down your net position into capital assets, net of related debt, restricted and unrestricted. For governmental activities, you see we just have two categories. Capital assets net of related debt was just over 4.4 million, and the remaining balance was unrestricted at about 3.2 million. When we're looking at the business type activities, we actually have three categories. Our capital assets net of related debt was nearly 8.2 million. Restricted net position was just over 3.6, and the remaining balance is considered unrestricted at 3.7. Okay. So the next required statement when we're looking at government-wide is a statement of activities, and that's similar to an income statement for those in the business sector. We just call it a statement of activities for the municipalities. So in the very first column, you'll see the total expenses for governmental activities was just over 4.2 million. And then we have listed across those revenue sources that are deemed to be program revenues versus general revenues. So for fiscal year 2019, we had charges for services of just over 216,000, operating grants and contributions of over 348,000, capital grants and contributions of about 44,000, and the remaining revenues were deemed to be general revenues, and that was 3.6 million. And that comprises your real estate taxes, your income taxes, a couple other suggestions. I don't have the statements in front of me, I'm sorry. But the big buckets are going to be your real estate taxes and income taxes. Overall, there was a change in net position of a decrease of $8,200. This next slide does the exact same thing for your business type activities. We'll start with our expenses. Our business type activity expenses were just under 3 million. Most, if not all of our revenues are coming from charges for services, and that was about 3.4 million. And the general revenues comprised 257,000. And for the business type activities, that comprised mostly interest income and rental. The change in net position for the business type activities was an increase of almost 700,000.
So now we're gonna flip the script and talk about the fund level statements. As Michelle mentioned earlier, they're presented on a different basis of accounting. And the numbers here are gonna differ from the numbers that we previously stated earlier in the report. So for the general fund, which is your only governmental fund type, there was total assets of 5.5 million. Total liabilities of just over 287,000. And the difference between your assets and liabilities is your fund balance of 5.3 million. We're required to break your fund balance down into these 5 separate categories: non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. The biggest category aside from your unassigned is your committed fund balance of 386,000, and this represents your open space park impact fees that have been set aside for park capital projects. The assigned fund balance of 41,000 is assigned for your lease obligation, and the remaining 4.8 million is unassigned at year end. Total revenues for the general fund were 4.2 million, and total expenditures were 4.3 million for a deficiency of revenues of 83,000. You can see that that differs from Michelle saying a couple slides ago of 8,200 as compared to 83,000, and that's because there's a few reconciling items as listed here, and I'm just going to highlight the big ones. On a fund level statement, the capital outlay is reported as an expense instead of an asset. Your capital outlay was 511,000. Similar to that, we don't record depreciation expense, so that was 401,000. You had debt service expenditures, which show up as an expense on your fund level and not a reduction of a liability, of 117,000, and the fourth biggest being your net pension adjustment of just under 155,000. So you can see how that 83,000 converts into the 8,200 that was shown on page 10 of the financial statements. And we all love this slide, so I'm just going to again highlight the big things. So this is taking the fund balance that I just said of the general fund of 5.3 million and converting it to the bottom line of the 7.6 million of the governmental activities. As mentioned, capital assets are not reported on a fund level, and so they are 5.7 million on the statement of net position. Our deferred outflows were 551,000, and down below it's negatives in the liability section, our long-term debt of 1.2 million and the net pension liability of 2.3 million. And that gets us to our net position of governmental activities of 7.6 million. Here's a snapshot of the general fund revenues as compared to the prior year. As you can see, most are comparable. The biggest increases were in the first 2 columns in our property taxes and a similar increase in our income taxes over the prior year. For the expenditures, the biggest increases were in recreation and culture, right in the middle. That had to do with your capital outlay in the Parks and Rec department over the prior year, as well as comparable increases in general government and public safety expenses.
This next slide focuses on the utility fund, which covers your water and sewer services. You'll see that operating revenues year over year had a 17% increase. Our operating expenses, there was a less than 1% increase over the prior year. Our operating income for fiscal year 2018 was 480,000 compared to our operating income for fiscal year 2019, which was almost 966,000. Here, this is a quick snapshot going from our operating income to the change in net position. So our operating income was the 966,000. We had interest income of about 133,000, And we also had interest expense and associated fees of almost $400,000. So that equals the change in net position that we spoke of earlier of about $700,000. This next slide just gives a quick snapshot of what your original budget, your final budget, actual results, and the variance. And we're just going to focus on the last two columns. So our actual revenues for the general fund were $4.2 million, as Addie mentioned, and that was a positive variance of $169,000. Our expenditures were $4.3 million, and that was a positive variance of $706,000. As we mentioned, the net change in fund balance actual was about a decrease of $83,000, and there was no budgeted use of fund balance. And that's a quick snapshot.
Quick indeed. Does anyone have any questions for the ladies while they're here this evening? Keep in mind, we will be looking for approval at the end of the meeting under new business for the audit. So now's your opportunity to ask any questions. Councilman Vigliotti, you look like you have something burning in your soul.
Well, Michelle knows the question I ask every single year about whether or not any kind of fraud or misplacement or misappropriation of funds was detected.
One of our responsibilities as your auditor is to immediately notify you if we detected fraud, suspected fraud, or had any inclination or concern. As we mentioned in the earlier slide, there were no material weaknesses identified in internal control, and that again would be another opportunity for us to tell you what we found. So we did not disclose anything. One of the byproducts of the audit, if we find things that we like to chat about, we meet with management, which we did last week, and we just share, like, these are things we saw, these might be things for improvement. We had maybe one or two of those, and honestly, it was probably the easiest audit we've had. Things went very smoothly. Barry was very prepared, her and her staff, and it was a really good audit.
That certainly speaks to Barry's capabilities, for sure. Thank you for all of your work, by the way. And just one other, I guess more of a productive question is, can we have a copy of the slide presentation?
So Barry has a copy. She can distribute it accordingly.
Thank you very much. And I'm good.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council members have questions they'd like to pose?
No, sir.
All right. I believe we're satisfied with the audit. Thank you so much for everything that you did. And Barry, of course, thank you again. It seems like each year they're getting smoother and smoother since you came on board, and we appreciate that greatly.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We're good to go?
You're good to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Have a safe drive.
Drive safely.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, it did make it darker.
All right, we're going to move on. Because it's a combined workshop and meeting, we're going to have public comment pertaining to both agenda and non-agenda items at this time. If you'd like to make any comments to the council, this is your opportunity. Feel free to step up to the podium, announce your name and address, and we'll be happy to hear anything you have to say. Would anyone like to say anything?
He's like, I don't know. Uh-oh, we're in trouble now.
Actually, you can go right over to the podium. There's a microphone there that can pick you up. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Hadrobo. This is my son, Atreyu.
Hello.
And we've been here for about a year and a half. And I just wanted to say that I really enjoy living here. I really enjoy the library, the activities they have there for kids, the parks. This is the only park I've ever seen that has a light wall that's interactive and you can play with it. You have great members in your community who do all sorts of things. One of my favorite people is Norbert. He runs a program called Be Fit for Life. And every Wednesday they have like open workout sessions for the community. And just wanted to thank you. I don't know how often you guys get praise versus, argument or problems. So in this instance with us, we're very happy to be here, and we're thankful, especially for the opportunity to come up here and speak to you directly. Atreyu, do you have anything to say?
No.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out this evening.
Thank you for making us your home, too.
We're always happy to hear the good and the bad, but it always feels a little better when it's the good. Put it that way. Anyone else from the public like to make any comments this evening? All right, hearing nothing more, we will move on. I'm going to ask members of the council if there is anything on the agenda that poses a conflict of interest to them.
Yes, sir.
All right. Resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. We have simply one, Resolution 2019-12. That is our monthly water allocation. I will entertain, well, first off, I'd like to clarify the agenda says September 2019. Should it be October 2019?
Yes.
Okay. So the correction on the agenda, Resolution 2019-12, is the water allocation for October 2019. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the water allocation for October 2019. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay. Very good, thank you. Mr. Wyprecht, we're at the city manager report. What would you like to give us?
Just a couple updates that weren't, this month, the council packets fell almost immediately behind planning commission, so my report was put together a little hastily. But at any rate, I do have a little bit of an update on the Sewell annexation, and that is simply that CDM Smith is working up some new numbers with regard to water and sewer capacity for us to be able to entertain that annexation. So there is some behind-the-scenes work going on there. We met with CDM Smith and ran through some numbers, and they've got some updates to do on their end because they play a large part in assisting us with our capacity projections. So that is ongoing, even though you may not hear a lot as far as coming directly from the Sewells or myself, but there is some background work going on. With regard to the Roberts Mill Run Stormwater Project and O'Brien Avenue Bridge, work has begun on that project. Work was set to begin, delayed, set to begin, delayed, but they are actually out there working. They're working on the sewer line replacement. There's an old terracotta sewer line that runs through the area that will be the new pond. And while the initial plan was to excavate around that line and support it, with it being made of terracotta, that was very unlikely that that would be a successful endeavor. So that's going to be replaced with PVC pipe. So that also should really help us with our inflow and infiltration, because that old terracotta pipe is very prone to leakage and infiltration, or yes, infiltration. So we're hoping that once that piece is complete and we have some rainy weather, we'll see a bit of a drop in our flows at the treatment plant. At any rate, work is ongoing there, as it is at the fill site for Memorial Park, where we're going to locate a lot of the overburden from the Roberts Mill excavation. We're going to use that to create a somewhat more level surface at the 22 acres in Memorial Park, so we'll have less fill to do down the road as we develop our additional acreage there. Pertaining to the city office building repair, we've met with 3 different architects at this point. For next month, I expect to have a proposal and recommendation before you for architectural services. We've met with Dean Camlin out of Westminster and formerly BMK, the architect that did the 2003 renovations of this building, and also with CDM Smith, who, as well as engineering, provides architectural services. So some of the things that we hope to achieve, in addition to obviously restoring the lobby and the front office to function, is to have some level of hardening of the building. We'd like to put the finance department back together in the front office rather than having two of them up front and two of them in the back part of the building. And we are considering switching the conference room to the ground floor and restoring this to two offices the way it was some years ago, just for better operational, day-to-day operations. And obviously we want to improve security inside the building as well, and one of the criteria, we really want to be able to isolate the lobby from the rest of the building so that people can't just wander in and go any place in the building without being,
Known that they're there.
known and with their access controlled, so they will have to be allowed to be in. So that's going to be a big feature of whatever proposal we move forward with. And we'd also like to make sure that we have a secondary exit from the finance office. Right now, there's only the one exit out of that whole area. So we'd like there to be a secondary office there as well. So that is moving forward slowly but surely, and hopefully next month we'll have a proposal before you and a recommendation to get our architectural services going. I suspect the architectural services, that may take nearly as long as the actual construction. I think the effort's really going to be in the design and not so much the actual construction. So that's about it for me. I do want to also call your attention to the Parks and Rec report. I know there were a number of questions last month when we talked about the Parks and Rec capital improvement project or program. And the Parks and Rec Advisory Board did meet. They went over the CIP. There's a letter in your packets as part of Bob Mitchell's report. And just wanted to call your attention to that. We do have some updated estimates on some of the projects, and the Parks and Rec Advisory Board did put a letter in there with their recommendations, but they did ask to have another month to take a more detailed look at the list. So hopefully we'll revisit that again in November.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wyprek. Is there any questions for Mr. Wyprek regarding his report or the departmental reports?
I have one, just a small question, but the preliminary numbers from CDM Smith, do they seem promising, or does it seem like there's going to be any issues in terms of capacity, or no?
We are going to need to increase our water permits with MDE, through MDE. So in order to do that, we are going to need to work through recharge acreage and make sure that we can satisfy the Department of the Environment as far as offsetting our additional pumping demands. And we have capacity at wells 15, 16, and 17. Those are all on the east side of the city, which is in the Pipe Creek aquifer. We have gone back and forth with MDE a couple times as far as whether recharge acreage needs to be in the specific aquifer that the well that they're going to increase the permit, that it needs to be in that same aquifer. Last we talked about it, MDE prefers that recharge be in the same aquifer as the well. The city has argued the point that all the wells pump into a single system. So it doesn't really matter where within the two aquifers that we draw from where the recharge acreage is, because we're pumping from all the wells into the city's total system. We're not, the east side of the city isn't served by specific wells, the west side isn't served by specific wells. It's a combination. Some wells pump to the standpipe, to the elevated water tower, some pump directly into the system. So we've kind of argued that point, but we did not have to associate recharge with any of our wells like we're going to for the Sewell property.
Okay.
So that's going to be an exercise we need to go through, and it's just something that we have not had to do previously. So it's going to be a learning curve for us, I suppose.
Okay.
Any additional questions from the council?
Go ahead, Diane, you can start.
On the Economic Development Report, Deputy Secretary Jimmy Wee from Small Business Minority and Women Business Affairs will be here on October 29th at 12 o'clock. Nancy has not decided the place. Likely it'll be Trinity, but she'll put out an email as to exactly where that will be. He'll be here speaking to the small businesses concerning the new minimum wage law and other important matters. Also, on Kevin's report, Public Works, he asked that we remind citizens that are here and who are watching that the Northern Landfill has issued notice to charge a tipping fee for recycling trucks that are contaminated with non-recyclables like plastic bags, organic matter, food, liquid, yard waste, rubber hoses, wires, scrap metal, and styrofoam. And that's just to name a few. They're gonna start charging tipping fees. So they would like the council to remind people to be vigilant about what you put in recycle. To date, the city hasn't been charged.
And it is only a certain percentage of, per can, so to speak. So if it's an overwhelming amount of negligent items, and it gets to that point where it has to be tipped, then yes, you accrue a charge. But it's not going to affect the person who, accidentally threw out 2 plastic bags, or, they had a couple miscreant items. So you don't have to be really anal about how you do it, but
Yes, you did.
Say, the thing is, what they're showing is that they're becoming more strict with this.
Right.
yes.
So the point is, we just need to be extra vigilant and just make sure. And this comes from Northern Landfill, not from the city ourselves. But as mentioned, our contractor is tagging recycling bins that have forbidden items in them, and they will not empty your can if it is in there. So if you get a tag on it saying there's something there shouldn't be, just take it out, and hopefully next time they can take it. Okay? Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman Fuller, you have something?
Okay. There was like 3 things. As far as events and stuff, do we have something in the works, a calendar or something that everybody can put their events and stuff in yet? Is there anything?
Not yet.
Okay, but we're kind of aiming towards doing that. And then the other thing was, as far as the safety measures, I realize we're going to do them downstairs. Is there anything, are we looking at doing anything in any of the other city facilities at all?
We are planning to do that. That will probably be after or on the heels of the city office reconstruction,
do.
rebuild. Certainly, we have discussed the idea of putting some bollards out in front of our other buildings. The idea of an electronic gate at the treatment plant, so that gate can stay locked during the day, but still have easy access for the utility crews that are in and out of there through the day. So there are a handful of improvements that we'd like to make, but I don't have a timeline on it at this point.
I just was curious. And then Daryl, you may actually be able to answer this one. I know that we advertised for the Parks and Rec position. Did we, when I went to the meeting that they had for MML's Park and Rec, the Maryland Rec and Park Association guy said that they would advertise for us as well, free of charge, to get a little bit more, broader reach. So I just wanted to check and see if we had explored that too.
Yes, we are on there.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's everything.
Great. Any other members of council, questions for Mr. Wyprecht on departmental or city manager reports? All right, our city attorney is still traveling abroad. Did Mr. Gullo give you anything to present, Mr. Wypeck?
Not this evening, no.
Not this evening? Very good.
Pictures to rub in our face.
They're all over Facebook, I'm promising you that. Moving into old business then, we're gonna bring back up the capital improvement program for Parks and Rec. As discussed earlier, there's a letter in your packets from the advisory board where they listed the two, what they believe are pressing priorities, and then requested to come back in November and present to us a more thorough finding. Is there any discussion from council regarding the letter from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board? And just for clarification, we'll mention that the two projects that they have highlighted is the expansion Memorial Park with the 22 acres, and then also the walking path surrounding the pond at Roberts Mill Park. Those are the two pressing things right now.
And we did discuss some of those ourselves.
We
back
did,
in September.
absolutely. Yep. Any comments from council regarding?
Is, the two priorities that they have listed here, are these potentially going to change, or are these going to remain the top two things? And then say like the next 8 in a list of top 10 will be decided?
I have a feeling these will remain their most pressing. That's not saying that they may not add to them as pressing, but I know these stuck out to them specifically. From there, they'll probably prioritize the rest as they believe for their recommendations.
And Mr. Mayor, there are things that have already been approved that will still happen probably in 2020.
Right.
But yes, at every meeting in the short time I've been back on council, and I'll go back to the first time, not enough fields. And it's not gonna get any better. And it's a good time to hopefully get ahead of the game while we have revenue in the stream. So, that's all.
Very good. Any additional comments from council?
And just to echo that, I think it's also important to mention that in the determination of not having enough fields, it's also the fact that of the fields that we have, there aren't many that are given time to rest. And so they become overtrodden and very susceptible to the elements. And it just gets to the point where a lot of the people who use them feel like they're just not fit for use because the fields have no time to actually recover from use because they're in constant cycling. So adding more would help that problem.
Okay. That will remain on the agenda for next month with more information from the advisory board. And then I guess the month after, Mr. Wyprak, we'll be moving on to the next CIP.
That's the plan.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Jumping into new business, we have our monthly financial report up for approval. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the monthly financial report. Is there any discussion from council? All right, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Thank you very much. We'll ask for the same for the accounts payables that is in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the accounts payables?
So moved?
And do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the accounts payables. Is there any discussion from council? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. It is approved. Next, we'll be seeking approval of the fiscal year 2019 audit that was just presented to you this evening. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved?
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. It has been moved and seconded to approve the fiscal year 2019 audit. Is there any discussion, questions, concerns from the council regarding that audit or the motion?
Should that say draft audit?
It does.
Well,
I'm looking at the wrong,
well, the,
If approved, we'll take the watermark off and fill the date in for.
okay, because, I don't know, this makes it sound like the final approval.
Oh, you mean on the agenda?
On the
itself?
agenda.
but it is the final approval.
Okay,
We have to submit this by the end of the month.
all right.
So once we approve the word draft, we'll be taken off. All right, any additional discussion from council? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. All right, the audit is approved. I do need to add one more thing to new business. We need to discuss the November meeting dates, because once again, it falls on a holiday. November the 11th is Veterans Day. That would be our normal city council meeting. As of this moment, the workshop is scheduled, stand by. Workshop is scheduled for November 6th with our regular meeting on November 11th, again, which is Veterans Day. City offices are closed that day. How would we like to handle that, council? Options being maintaining two separate meetings and just changing the date of the actual meeting, or we can combine them again like we did this month.
If we move the Monday meeting to Monday, November 18th, that works for me.
If we move that one, we would probably want to move the workshop to the 13th, just to keep them fairly close together, not a week and a half apart.
I wouldn't mind doing them the same evening either.
Yeah,
I
'cause the
can-
13th doesn't work for me.
Okay. So
Councilman,
then,
I'm sorry, Councilman Haynes?
No, I was
But-
gonna
oh.
say that the 13th works for me, but she said it doesn't work for her, so.
okay, if we are interested in combining the meetings, our option shall be Wednesday, November 6th, or standby, Monday, November 4th, which would be the day after daylight savings time ends.
Either works for me.
So either works. So.
Either one is fine.
Either works for me too.
Flip a coin?
The 5th.
I can't do the 5th. 5th is election day, isn't it? I believe it is. According to Apple, it is election day.
Is it?
I believe so.
Okay, I guess it's the 4th then.
Let's do the 4th. I kind of like doing Monday nights. Okay. All right, so we'll do a combined meeting on Monday, November 4th, workshop and regular meeting together.
Do we have to take a vote on that to change the date?
I don't believe so. I think it's just simply guidance. Is that correct, Mr. Wyper?
Okay.
We do have consensus on that. Anything additional for new business from the council? All right, hearing none, we're going to go into council member reports. I'm going to start with Councilwoman Fuller. That way you don't have to follow Councilman Vigliotti this time.
It's an easy one.
But I do.
It's nothing personal.
Everybody's gotta get some of that. I was gonna say Jim Parker's here. Is there anything you'd like to mention about the planning commission? I think we've had a pretty late load here lately. I will say it is the start of Christmas season as far as I'm concerned. I will be out on the streets hanging stuff soon. So if anybody wants to volunteer or offer services, money,
How soon?
whatever that may
Money's
be.
always good.
I know. They
How
can
soon? Are we
contact
talking after Halloween, or are you going to be that person that starts before
me.
Halloween?
No, I think I may have to start Main Street here in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
It's gonna be a lot bigger.
You're gonna be like the retail store.
Frederick already has theirs up on their Main Street. They're not turned on, but they're up. So I don't want to do it out in the cold. It's icky.
Well, Judy, I'm happy to volunteer and help out however I can, you know.
Right?
That's,
You know, you can walk the dog.
Yeah, please let me know if you need anything. I don't know how much labor I can give you, but.
I like moral support too. I'll use
So again, if anyone has Christmas decorations that are spare, please contact Councilwoman Fuller and we can keep building this up. She's doing a tremendous job so far. I'm excited for this year.
Yeah, me too.
Now, we do have the tree lighting coming up on December
7th.
7th, and that's going to be
As we
kind of an
get
all-day
closer.
affair, right?
Yep, as we get closer, we'll have more details, but we're hoping to start it a little earlier and have more activities for the kids to keep them busy and wear them out. So, so by the time the kids sing, then there'll be a little less screaming in the background. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Vigliotti, do you have anything for us this evening?
I do. The police departmental report for this evening is quick, straightforward, brief to the point. So for September 2019, the total number of dispatched or generated calls for service numbered 425. The total number of citations issued state, city, and repair were 48. The total number of adult arrests were 12. The total number of juvenile arrests was 1. The total number of warnings issued were 35. Under the good news section, physical fitness training for new hires has been completed, and the department is moving forward with interviews and background investigations for prospective candidates. And in terms of community outreach, Corporal Schaefer attended the back-to-school picnic at Taneytown Elementary School on September 26th and was well received. And that's it from this month.
Very good. Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Pro Tem Foster, what do you have for us this evening?
Under economic development, first of all, Fall Fest was a huge success. Nancy wants to thank everybody that helped in any way, and particularly commend the police department. Without their guidance and keeping things together, it could not have come off so smoothly. So a special thanks to the police. All the food vendors ran out of food.
Nice.
The vendors did a little business. Everybody seemed to enjoy the band, and it was just all in all a very successful day. And even Mother Nature cooperated.
It was a gorgeous day.
All but one dog, I think, was adopted on the adoption.
Thank you, Councilman Fuller, for that.
I didn't take all of them. I just.
October 26th will be Nightmare on Main Street with a sidewalk parade for the kids down to Memorial Park. November 16th is Business Elf Hunt down Main Street. And November 30th is American Express Small Business Saturday. And as the mayor said, the tree lighting is December 2nd. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Hale, what do you have for us this evening?
Diane, a question for you, for the parade. Isn't that I have in my phone the 25th? Is that a Friday? 'Cause I thought we were gonna divide and conquer with.
The Nightmare on Main Street is 26th.
It's 25th,
25th.
Friday the 25th.
I'm
yeah.
sorry. This is a
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Yes, it is the same evening as.
Oh, it's okay.
Thanks for catching that.
Sure. Again, this past weekend at the park was amazing. I mean, to see the entire park full. And I agree, the police, I don't know how you guys got the cars in there that smoothly. I know that Jody was out there for a number of hours as well.
Yeah.
And, but it's, makes me proud to see something like that happen in the city. I think if we try a little bit harder with some strong guidance up here, we can, keep a lot of this stuff going more frequently in our city. That's what we need. And, just thanks everybody. And, that's all I have for Parks and Recs.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Haynes, what do you have for us this evening?
So I have nothing new from Public Works. However, I do want to mention that the CCRC met on September 12th, and I stand by my understanding that the recent FCC decisions will not directly impact municipalities. Bottom line is they're only going to directly affect how much the CCRC can collect in franchise fees from their franchise agreements with cable companies. That's it. And the difference, whether it be an increase or a decrease, will be minute at best. So the CMC is still going to continue functioning and it's still going to receiving funding. However, the CMC will be forced to look for other revenue options. They might not be able to depend on franchise fees as heavily in order to operate. But as for us, we really don't have to worry about it.
I think the biggest aspect of that that's really going to impact most people or most municipalities is any in-kind services they provide
Right.
will be deducted from those franchise
Yes.
fees, which could affect everybody, but probably Media Center more than anyone, considering I believe they provide them bandwidth for their channels
Right.
in kind, which now they can deduct out of franchise fees.
Right.
Overall, it's rather heavy-handed of the FCC to have come in like that and do so. But FCC right now is creating a lot of battles for municipalities. Mayor Pro Tem Foster is in legislative committee as well, where they discuss these at length. But definitely keep us informed as you find out more from them,
Absolutely.
how that'll move forward.
And that's all for me.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. Just to continue the echo chamber, this past weekend was absolutely phenomenal at Memorial Park. Thank you to everybody. I saw all of you there, which was great. It was a very full park on Saturday. I'm not sure how many thousands of people were there. I know that many people from the baseball tournament came up and enjoyed the Harvest Fest, bought their food, went to the vendors, enjoyed the music. It was a great kind of mashup of both things happening at once. It was a great day. I know I was there Saturday from about 6 in the morning till about 7:30 in the evening. Primarily baseball tournament and going over to the Harvest Fest, and baseball tournament went on again yesterday as well. So that's the last one for the year, baseball tournament wise. But city staff did an amazing job of coordinating all of those things at the park. Police department was great. It was such an amazing use of one of our many assets and facilities. So it was great to see, and just more reason to look at the expansion of that park. Next week, majority of council and myself will be in Cambridge for the MML Fall Conference. We also have the business breakfast on Friday. And I think that's really all I have to report at this time. So if no one has anything else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Thank you very much.